Hi you guys, it's Miss Young. For my students, I hate that I'm not there with you, but this video is to help you prepare for state board. For any other instructors or other students out there watching this, please use my tips to help you prepare for state board and incorporate that into what your instructors have already taught you. There's many ways that this can be done, not that many ways, but you will notice some things are different. I want my students to take all the necessary steps and be trained in those steps, even if it's not listed in what the examiner is going to be checking you off on. You'll notice it mainly in the wax portion. So I'm going to go ahead and get started to talk to you guys about it. So the new state board started back in, I think it was 2016. Yeah, so I did get certified on a class that I went for the new one. So I pretty much have it down pat. My students have a very high success rate. I will say I did get one girl that had a B because she forgot her hand sanitizer. So if you forget it, continue on. You might not fail. I don't know though with COVID though. So as I walk you through it, like I said, if there is something that you see your instructor does differently or that you teach differently, definitely modify this to your liking. This is for the South Carolina Cosmetology State Board Practical Examination. This is how we do it at the vocational school. I use a lot of stimulated products rather than the real thing. So you'll notice that I did talk about it in the kit packing as well. So I'm going to kind of just give you a little bit of a rundown of what state board is going to be like, and then I'm going to get started. So just imagine, okay, so you're there that day, and you want to make sure you have on your lab coat. You can wear blue jeans or black slacks. You can never go wrong with black slacks. Make sure you have closed-toed shoes on. I highly suggest some darker tennis shoes, something that's going to be comfortable for you guys to be in. Please refrain from wearing like boots. You definitely know you can't wear sandals. I mean, we've all been in school for what, 2 years now? And if you are somebody that gets really hot, you'll want to wear a tank top underneath your lab coat because your lab coat's not coming off. If you are somebody that stays cold or gets cold, wear a warmer shirt underneath so you're not miserable during state board. So you got your uniform on, and in your pocket you should have 2 forms of ID. You need one driver's license or an ID card, and then you need a second form. Refer to the handbook for the second form. I suggest you just bring your social and your ID. You can also bring your ID and a credit card or debit card, but it has to have your name on it. If it has your parents' name on it, it's not acceptable. It's not a second form. So do make sure you read up on the handbook. No cell phones. Cell phones, leave in the car. No watches. Leave that in the car, especially your smartwatches. Go ahead and take it off. Went in and took my Fitbit off. So you're standing there, you got 2 IDs, you got your uniform on, you have your kit ready. So you either have a duffel bag or you have a bag or a bag with wheels or a suitcase. And you'll also have your mannequin. I only have you guys bring one mannequin head and one mannequin hand. We will use her throughout the entire thing. You will notice that her rollers are out. So I went ahead and brushed her out. And this is what you're going to look like walking in. So when you get to the door, someone is going to appoint a spot at a table. So we're going to pretend this is my spot. So I'm going to put my head down, put your kit underneath your station, and go ahead and place your head beside it, because at this point there should be nothing on your table. Now at any time that you are in a transition or you're waiting, make sure that you are stepped back from the table. You have your hands either in front or your hands in back. I suggest to refrain from putting them in your pocket because you may end up putting a clip in there, and once you get in the habit you just get too comfortable, so make sure you're standing. Alright, so you've been assigned your spot. Throughout the state board, you're going to have examiners and you're going to have a prompter in the room. So your prompter is going to basically be stationary, either in the top corner or the top center. She's going to be reading off of the sheet. Your examiner is going to be at your table. Now this person will have a clipboard and they will be examining you. Now in order to know what you're going to be examined on, look at the bolded form at the very bottom. You can look in the handbook and it has that in there. I think it's in the last part of it. I'm not 100% sure. But I will tell you this, I've noticed by looking at my student scores in the past, this is what they're going to examine you on. So in the work area, you have 4 things to mainly focus on. And those are things that we're going to focus on today. Your examiners will rotate after each portion of the exam. They wait till everybody's done or when time is up, and they have the examiners rotate, and they'll get started with the next thing. I think that's it as far as they go. Oh, one thing I do want to say, the examiners. You guys, they're not your friends. They're not your teachers. They're not going to talk to you. They're not going to help you. They're not going to, they might smile at you. Some of them might not smile at you. They're not doing this to be rude. It's their job. They're not supposed to talk to you. So if you ask them a question, they may say, do as you've been told or do as you've been taught, because that's what they're supposed to do. They're not supposed to help you. They're there just to examine. So don't think they're being rude. They're just doing their job. Heads up. All right, so we're going to get started. So your prompter at the front is going to be reading off at this, going to read this off in the beginning. You'll prepare your work area for your client. You will set up the universal supplies that you will see throughout the examination. You'll also set up the supplies for all the following section of the examination: thermal curling and hair cutting. You'll also prepare your client for services. You will be expected to follow all client protection, safety, and infection control procedures. You have 15 minutes to complete this section. You'll be informed when you have 8 minutes remaining. Step back to indicate you are finished. So once again, that will be repeated. And then when she says, you may begin, is when you will begin. So we're going to pretend she just said, you may begin. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pop down in my kit, and I'm going to grab my hand sanitizer. So we put the hand sanitizer in the front, and we kept it separate. Because the first thing I have to do before I can do anything else is sanitize my hands. Now, you don't need to slap your hand. However, do make sure that you make eye contact with the examiner and be like, you see this? Okay, now that she's seen it, we can move on. So after we've sanitized our hands, we're going to take out our 3 bags. They're already lined. You have soiled linen. I don't want to put that on the table yet. So I'm going to prop my soiled linens up. You have your trash. And I suggest to practice with the bags that you're using. Definitely align them. This way you know which is which. And you have your items to be disinfected. So we want to make sure we do our trash cans and get those out. Alright. And make sure you fully set them up. You can either pick the left or the right side. Look at the person next to you though. You don't want to collide with them a lot. So let's say if this person right here, she put hers on this side, I'm going to put mine over here so we can just keep them separate. And this way it just doesn't cause problems throughout the exam. So make sure you know your bags. So my bags are out. The next thing I'm going to grab is my barbicide. So I have got to disinfect my table. Now, they want you to really disinfect this table. That's why you have 15 minutes. So if you're using a wipe, you can grab your wipe. And they want you to wipe the table for 2 minutes, basically. That's the notes I have down. So count to 100 and like really get in there, get in the groove. This is where you can get your nerves out. You know, if you're nervous, make sure it's nice and clean. You're gonna kill all that bacilla, all that, what's the other one? The coxilla, spirilla, coxa, all that fun stuff. All right, so we have wiped it for 2 minutes. Once again, if you're using the wipes, count to about 100, 120 will be 2. If you're using the spray, spray it down, count to about 30, let it sit, and then wipe for the rest. All right, this goes in my trash. So because I have the bags that are propped up, I just throw it in. I don't have to touch it. If you touch your trash bag, grab the hand sanitizer and sanitize your hands. All right, so I'm going to grab out my first bag. not this bag, but this bag. So you are looking for the bag with your curling iron in it. It also is going to have your mannequin holder and all of that fun stuff. So you can dump everything out or you can neatly put out. You guys, you have 15 minutes. This is too much time. So your water bottle. Go ahead and place a towel on your station. And this is going to be where you place all of your tools. I like to place my universal supplies in one of the corners. Make sure your examiner can see all of your labels. I tell my students to just turn it in through the table so when she's looking at you or he's looking at you from this angle, they can see everything easily. Go ahead and take out your curling iron. And because we've already set it up, she's ready. Make sure you are using the lever before you put it down. You can go ahead and take out your combs and your clip. You can take out your scissors or you can keep them. If you keep them in the bag or in the kit, just make sure you have the label out where they can see that. So I'm gonna put this over here because I don't need this yet. My first aid kit is part of my universal supplies, so we're definitely going to lay that out as well. We have our brush. Towel. So I packed this mannequin holder. I'm going to go ahead and put this in my items to be disinfected in because I'm going to use this one today. It has an extender on it. So I'm not on my knees at this point. All right, so most of my students always ask, where do you put the bag that you had everything in? This goes straight into your trash can. All right, now once I've gotten just about everything out, I am going to make sure I have my broom and my dustpan out just in case I need it. Lay that to the side. Make sure that you fully zip up your kit. Your kit has to stay closed the entire time. So you're going to then set up your mannequin. I'm trying to think of some things. You can use the towel a little bit if you would like to keep your mannequin still, or you can use something I call a squeegee. They're the things that you line. Actually, I have one right there. I'll show it to you. So you would normally see these in the kitchen at someone's house. These work awesome. You can cut them up pretty short like this and put them on the table and then put your stand on top of that. That way your stand's not going to be moving. So if you have a stand that moves a lot, I highly, highly suggest you use a squeegee. All right. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drape my client, kind of walk you through this. We haven't even used the 15 minutes yet, so don't worry. I know you're bored. For this draping, we only need one towel around the neck, and then we need a styling cape. So you can use one of the makeup capes that are smaller, or you can use a styling cape that is not plastic or a chemical cape. This is more cloth. Now, when you are putting the towel on, make sure you do it nice and snug. One of the things you're being examined on, if you look, is maintain drape throughout the entire service. So what does that mean? That means that this towel is seen the entire time and that cape is on that mannequin the entire time. So we're going to go ahead and you're basically just going to wrap it around pretty tight. Keep it nice and snug. When I packed my end papers, I did put the duckbill clips around it, and I put an extra one on there for my towel. So I'm going to place that in the back, keep my towel nice and snug, and then I'm going to put my cape on. So when you're going to put the cape on, as step forward, you want to do it backwards. So I'm going to take the shorter side, and that's going to be what is in the front. Once again, you want to make sure that you can see the towel. So make sure you have like a good inch of it. Make sure you get it nice and velcroed and put some pressure on that. So we definitely want to make sure that they see that nice drape. And I'm just kind of making everything a little neat real quick before we get started. I did have this extra towel. I suggest to keep this just in case her hair gets really wet and drippy during the haircut. You can also use it for the table and all of that fun stuff. So once she has been fully set up, you can go ahead and take your little clips off. Make sure your end papers are kind of folded out or fanned out to where you can easily pick one up. And once you get everything the way you like it, you can take your hand sanitizer, sanitize your hands, and step back. So at this time, other people may be setting up still. While other people are setting up, stop and look. Take a second. Make sure you have everything you need. Am I missing anything? If so, what am I missing? Where is it if it's missing? If you go back in your kit, make sure you close it back up. Make sure you sanitize afterwards. If you touch any of these bags, make sure you sanitize afterwards. Things like that. Just stay in your head. And I believe that is everything for this work area that I need to talk to you about. So we're going to move on. All right, so once again, as far as your work area, you're going to be evaluated on first thing, make sure you disinfect work area completely with a product labeled in English as EPA registered hospital grade disinfectant. Sanitize your hands with product labeled in English. Universal supplies are labeled in English. And items to be disinfected, soil linens, and trash are disposed in the correct manner. So they're going to be watching that. All right, so we're going to go ahead and move on and talk about thermal curling. So once again, I'm going to demonstrate it. I'm going to talk about it as I do it. I may not do all 4 of them. We'll see how it goes. Just to make sure you guys get the gist of it. So your proctor at the top, I'll pretend I'm the proctor, I'll go away. She says, you'll perform thermal curling. You will form 2 thermal curls at the top of the head and 2 curls on the side of the head. A complete curl must be formed from the base to the ends. You'll be expected to follow all client protection, safety, and infection control procedures. You have 10 minutes to complete this section. You'll be informed when you have 5 minutes remaining. Step back to indicate you have finished, and she will repeat that one more time, and then she will say, you may begin. So we're going to pretend she just said, you may begin. First thing I'm going to do is sanitize my hands. Yeah, I already sanitized them, but now I have a client. First I was just, setting it up. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to section out the top and the sides, just what I'm going to curl. This is going to kind of just give me a little bit of a map. So if you're super nervous, you can just focus on making those straight horizontal lines. So I'm going to go ahead and section out my top. You can add a little on the back just to make sure you have a good section. And I'm going to just section out my sides. Now, before in the past, people have went ahead and put a 5-part section in. You can do that, whatever you choose to do. The next thing that they're looking for is to make sure you subsection. So we're going to now subsection this out. You had a roller in here, so you can kind of see a line of demarcation. And you can kind of use that. But if you can't see it and you fully brush it out, you want to make sure it's at least a 1/2 inch to 2 inches. I think this is about 2.5, no more than 3 inches in width, or in length, and then you want about a 1/2 inch in width. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to brush out all the tangles. So they're looking to make sure that your curls are very smooth. You can transfer your comb into the other hand. I'm going to pick up an end paper and hold it within this hand. I'm going to pick up my curling iron. I'm going to just test my end paper with it. Let it sit for a second. Now this time I'm going to look at my examiner in the eye. And I'm going to give her a beautiful smile so she knows, hey, I just tested that. My end paper goes in the trash, and we're ready to proceed. Now, I have been in meetings where they say you can test the iron once and move on. What I tell my students is test the iron in the make sure the examiner sees you. So do it at least twice. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to do my first curl and then I'm going to clank it up. So what we're not doing is we are not going all the way to the ends and then bring it down. We are doing more of a figure 6 curl. And the entire time I am protecting my clients. You want to make sure that this comb is protecting it. If you do not have this comb here, your examiner can give you a 0. All right, so we're going to take this iron out because it's probably been a little too hot. So I'm going to unravel it a little bit and then I'm going to clamp. I'm going to go ahead and put it safety gear down, grab a duckbill clip, kind of make my curl the way I want it, even though it is nice and pretty. You guys can see that. And I'm going to go ahead and clip it at the base. By go ahead and doing that now, we're going to be able to just keep it neat. So let me put her back on the stand. And I'm going to clip. Very nice. So then I'm going to grab my next section. So let's say I've already tested it once, right? But I didn't think the examiner saw me. So I'm going to grab my end paper again. I'm going to put down a little safety lever. And I'm going to smile. I always smile at them. When they think you're happy, it makes them happy, right? So then I'm going to put this back down and put this in the trash. I'm going to go ahead and smooth out this next top one. Down your liver. Start at the base, heat it up, move up a little bit, and do a curl. Clamp up, and curl. Clamp up. Oh, you see I'm protecting her, right? So if you're one of my students, you remember me walking around screaming every time you didn't use one of those combs to protect. The reason is, if you don't do it at State Board, you guys, they can give you a 0. I have seen it before. And I've asked the students, why do you have a 0? Did you not do it? Oh, they did it. They just didn't protect your client. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do the next 2 just so you guys can see it since I'm not going to do the haircut. I have already tested the iron twice. I am ready to knock this thing out of the park, so I'm going to move on. Now, there have been some examiners that say test it every single time. Like I said, if your examiner says to do something, follow what she says. However, my students, while you're at State Board, don't look at anybody else. Just do what I taught you. Because when you start looking at people, you get confused. And you start second guessing yourself. So, you don't have to necessarily clip them at the base, especially on the side ones. They do allow spiral curls. The only thing I would say with spiral curls is just make sure you get that spiral really nice in there. So once again, protecting my client. And then when I clamp out for my spiral, I'm going to clamp and make sure that it falls into a spiral and get to where you can fully see that. Because they're walking around and they're looking to see, are these curls perfect or not? Okay. So, a few things that they're looking for. 1 is to make sure your supplies are in English. 2, to make sure your implements are visibly clean. 3, you test the temperature of the iron. 4, subsection the hair for thermal curling. 5, uses the iron safely. 6, final appearance of the 4 curls. Make sure they're nice and neat. 7, maintains drape throughout the entire procedure. And 8, items to be disinfected, soil linens, and trash are disposed in the correct manner. So, it hasn't been 10 minutes yet. So I'm going to take this moment and I'm going to look and see what I can go ahead and dispose of. So at this time, I can get rid of my tail combs. Now, unless you need a tail comb to help you section in the haircut, keep the one you have not used yet. If you've used them, I suggest to go ahead and put it on to be disinfected. But this would be one of the things where you should talk to your examiner. They can say, oh, well, technically we still have the same person, so I can use the same ones. Well, I can't really give you that answer. just do what you think is the most sanitary way. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of my tail comb. Items to be disinfected. Another thing that I don't need anymore is my curling iron. You can go ahead and wrap this up. Items to be disinfected because we can clean this baby. Next thing I am going to do is I'm going to grab all the end papers. I do not need end papers anymore, so this goes into my trash. I do need my clip still. I can get rid of this clip. Items to be disinfected. I'm keeping the other clips in because my examiner may not have came yet. And went ahead and disposed of what I could. I'm going to sanitize. And then I'm going to take a step back. So that's thermal curling. So the thing with thermal curling is making sure you're just hitting all of those points, what you're going to be evaluated on, and making sure you have constant protection with that comb. I tell my students to never put the comb down. You should be able to do this whole thing without putting the comb down. Constantly transfer the comb. Get used to transferring. If you feel uncomfortable doing this while you are watching TV, while you are watching TikTok, scroll. Get comfortable. It'll save you in life, I promise. All right, so the next portion of this client or this draping is going to be your haircut. I am not going to demonstrate the haircut. Oh, I know. Most of my students are probably like, why, Michelle? Well, here's the reason why. So I'm just going to read out to you what your prompter reads. You will perform a haircut. You will complete a basic layered haircut using your razors and your shears. You will cut at least 1 inch of hair off throughout the haircut. Do not remove your hair clippings from the work area until you are instructed individually by the examiner to do so. I repeat, do not remove them until they tell you. You will be expected to follow all client protection, safety, and infection control procedures. You have 30 minutes to complete this, and you'll be informed when you have 15 minutes remaining. Step back to indicate you have finished. So the haircut that I normally teach is the old State Board haircut. I will include it down in the link. You start with a razor down at the nape, you work your way up to the occipital bone, and then you switch to shears. I have taught that to some of you guys. Most of you guys have done both versions of 90 degree, where you start at the top section and then work your way back and then to the sides. I know instructors that take their students to State Board that do a 45 degree haircut and still get a good grade. I know instructors that take their students and do a 180 degree haircut. So what they're asking for is a multi-layered haircut. The biggest thing with this haircut is you need to be able to finish it in 30 minutes. You need to be able to use the razor for at least 1/3 of it. So don't save to use the razor to last if you are slow at cutting. Go ahead and get that in there. A few of the things when they look at the evaluations. So for hair cutting, they're looking to see if your supplies are in English, if implements and supplies are going to be clean. Number 3 says that they use the razor safely. Number 4 says that they use the shears safely. So if an examiner doesn't see you use the razor, they're not going to mark it off, oh, well, yeah, I'm sure she knows what she's doing because she uses shears, right? Nah, they're not going to do that. They're going to be like, well, I didn't see that. That's an X. No points for you. So make sure you guys plan out your haircut and pick which one. A few other things with the haircut. Number 5 says that you cut the entire nape line at a uniform length. So that's why we always started with the razor right there to go ahead and get that uniform length in. You want to make sure that you cut the sides a uniform length, that the haircut is blended, okay? We don't want to have a lot of those points out. And then we'll get to the next part soon. So as far as the haircut goes, plan out which one you want to do. I suggest a 90 degree or a 180. The reason I suggest the old State Board 90 is because, you guys, it has been around for so long. That haircut is what most of the examiners have seen year after year after year. So going in and checking a haircut that they've seen and they're used to doing, they're like, oh yeah, this is great. But them going in and checking a haircut that's like asymmetrical or something that they're not used to, they might be more prone to find more mistakes, if that makes sense too. But like I said, talk with your examiner and figure out which one you want to do. My students, you guys can do the 90-degree or you can do the 180. I don't suggest to do the 45. Y'all did rock that when we did it. However, that multi-layered haircut is what they're looking for with the 90 and the 180. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about before we're done, you did your haircut. Or you're doing your haircut. So let's say you're doing your haircut and the last section you have is this top section. Go ahead and check all of the haircut before you get to this section. The reason is you can rush through the haircut and have a lot of messed up spots, or you can have one area that you didn't get to and have a perfect haircut. So that's one tip that my instructor gave us a long time ago. I didn't finish my haircut when I went to State Board 10 years ago. I had a little bit of the front section, and it didn't take off that many points. So don't stress yourself out about it. You do want to make sure you get the majority of the cut done. So you're done with your haircut, sanitize your hands, and step back. You now have hair everywhere. Look around at this point while you're waiting on everybody or while you're waiting on your examiner to instruct you, and see where all your hair is. Even see if Sally Sue or Jessie May got hair in your area. Because here's the deal, anything that's in your area that's unsanitary or dirty is your responsibility. So when you have been instructed to clean it up, that is everything that needs to come up. You can bring a broom and dustpan. They should have one for you. One year I brought students because they told us they were going to give this to them and they did not. And they had to use paper towels to get their hair up. And ever since that year, I always tell my students to go ahead and bring one. What this will allow you to do, let's say your examiner is like, okay, you guys can go ahead and clean up. You can go ahead and start cleaning up some stuff while you're waiting on the broom to be done and for you to use it. If you have hair on your towel, at this point while you're getting that cleaned up, you can go ahead and put your clips and stuff in the items we disinfected. You can shake your towel out, or you can put your towel in soiled linens. I've heard of girls flipping the towel so it looks neater when you're done. Go ahead and get rid of it. If you flip it, you could be flinging hair forward. The examiner may watch you and be like, oh, she's taking shortcuts. COVID-19, man. You know, dock some points off. Just use common sense when it comes to cleaning. If you have hair out, it is going to be unsanitary. And you guys, anything that's unsanitary, they can give you a 0 for the whole thing. I have seen it before. Yes, the girl passed the overall exam, but she did receive 0s for a few things. Do not take off the draping at this point when you're cleaning up the hair. You want to leave your station with a little bit of what's left, and then you can go ahead and make sure the hair is up, but leave the mannequin here. All right, I'm gonna stop the video at this point. So I basically went through your work area. I went through thermal curling, and I talked to you about the haircut, but the haircut is gotta be something that you're comfortable with. Just make sure you're using that razor at least 1/3 of the haircut. The next video, you're gonna see this set up because we're gonna do the transition, and I'm gonna talk to you about the difference of the transition and things you can keep out, and we're gonna go straight in all the way through client 2, which is gonna be all of our chemical services. I'm trying to think and make sure that that's everything that I wanted to tell you. Yeah, if not, I will do a video of extra tips that I forgot. All right, well, I hope that you enjoyed this one, and be sure to watch the next video for more information.